welcome to season 2 of Asking for a Friend. We're back at long last, and I've got my co-host. Hi, Steph. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you? Have you had a nice
Um,
half term?
I've had a lovely half term, thank you.
Good.
And I've got my other co-host, Adam. Adam's got a story to tell. Hi, Adam.
Hello. So I have had no internet for 3 weeks, and it's been amazing. The only downside is we've not been able to do the podcast because I haven't had Wi-Fi. I think we'd planned a little break anyway, hadn't we?
Yeah.
But this turned into an extended break, so it's good to be back.
Oh, it's great to have you all back. And does somebody want to tell our 2 listeners what the topic for today is? No. Go on, Steph.
Yeah, we're doing Jehovah's Witnesses and their attitude to sex, and we're going to I imagine all discuss how in our own little magical ways we're all pretty sexually dysfunctional. I'm speaking for myself. I don't know about you.
This is not the podcast for TMI, is it?
No, yeah. If you don't want to hear about sex now, I suppose is your warning.
Now is the time to switch off.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, well, where do we start?
I guess, really, for people who maybe don't know the JW view on sex, it's very, very controlled by the organisation, isn't it?
Yes. I often found it, not that I talk about this a lot, but when it has come up in conversation with people that I've just found out I used to be a witness, for instance, and I say, I didn't have sex until after I got married. They are quite shocked at that because it's quite an old-fashioned thing, isn't it? And obviously I'm not that old. So yeah, it is very, very controlling. And I found that, like, I had a lot of problems going from the night before you're married to it being like absolutely terrifying to the night that you're married, and then you crack on, happy days, and it just doesn't work like that in your head, I found personally.
Sorry, no, I would just be really interested to hear from you two with regard to, obviously we don't want to get too personal, although I think we are quite
we probably are.
We are sort of oversharers generally with each other.
Yeah.
But I do think that it'll be interesting to hear your experiences, because I'm the only one who was never married as a witness. So I had sex at 22, but which is pretty late, but I'd already left the witnesses.
Right.
So I didn't have that pressure of the wedding night. So that would be interesting to hear what your experience, what it must be like to have everything resting on that night, and then what happens if it's just not what you expected.
It's probably useful to kind of just rewind a little bit and speak briefly about dating for Jehovah's Witnesses. So a normal person dating, even if it's still called that, I don't know if it is, they would decide what kind of person they would like to go on a date with, and then they'd go for a drink or they go to the cinema or whatever, and it would progress from there. Obviously, with witnesses, it's a much smaller pool of people. You are only allowed to date people that tick certain boxes.
And you're only allowed to date with an intention to marry as well. So there's already that huge pressure.
And as well, the rules stipulate that you are not allowed to be alone with the person that you're dating.
Yeah.
So I know for me and millions of other witnesses around the world, they had to have a chaperone, a third person who basically followed them around everywhere and was bored to death. But it had to be. And that person had to be there because that was the JW rule. So a bit of a bizarre. I think we had a bit of a bizarre experience dating, didn't we?
Yeah, because 19th century situation, isn't it? Really old-fashioned.
It really is, because that thing about the chaperone is there to make sure you don't get up to anything, but you're never going to get up to anything because the chaperone is there. So it does work in the way that it does what it's supposed to do, but it massively cramps any idea of intimacy that should be starting to form within a courting couple.
Yeah.
Because I know from experience, because I was my sister's chaperone. So when my sister got married in 2002, and she was seeing Chris for about 9 months before they got married. So I think that, as far as I know, because I was their main chaperone, really, and I just feel as though I felt awful for them, because I don't feel as though they ever really opened up with each other.
Yeah.
They will have, because there was texting and stuff like that, and I'm sure they did meet without us knowing, not that anything happened, but just the idea of all those things that as an adult you are right to expect when you're going out with someone, that you can be alone, to have, not even in a sexual way.
No, but just to be getting to know each other, and have got open conversation, and it's very limiting, isn't it? I remember, would it have been the first boy? I didn't even really go out with him. I was 15 and he was very, very interested in me, and we'd been like in a big group ice skating together and things, and his dad was an elder, and his dad came round to our house and sat me down in my family's house and said, what are your intentions towards my son? And I was like 15, and I was thinking, oh my God, we expected to be getting married, because like we'd literally held hands.
It's crazy.
There is a bit of a, I don't know if you call it a contradiction, but there's a bit of a strange situation within the Jehovah's Witness religion, because it very clearly states a rule that people should not be dating unless they're old enough to marry. So if you were in a congregation now and you were 16, say, that would probably be looked down on. But then the other problem with that is that, because the religion says you can't have sex before marriage, all of these young sort of teenagers, early 20s, they're dying to get married. So Jehovah's Witnesses generally get married quite young, but they're also being told they can't date when they're 16, but by the time they're 21, they're being left on the shelf. So it's this bizarre situation where you've got these 18, 19-year-olds all rushing to try and get married before there's no one left, kind of thing. It's really damaging. It is damaging.
It is. And I got married too young. I mean, I was 2 months 20 when I got married. So we'd obviously been dating from when I was 18 through to 20. And I would say, like, you look back and you think you weren't getting married to have sex. That wasn't the sole thing. But it was certainly a subconscious pressure that sort of, like, knowing that there will be no intimacy until you're married, I think does hasten the process along. I'm not saying like you marry the first person that you come across, but there is a bit of an urgency, because your body's doing all the things that bodies do in your teenage years, wanting to desperately reproduce like bodies do, and you've got no outlet for it. And you can't even think about it because God's watching. He's watching.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to watch porn. You're not allowed to masturbate. You're not allowed to do anything with the person that you're courting. Everything rests on that wedding night. And I mean, I know it's happened, because it happened with a couple in our old Kingdom Hall, didn't it, Adam, where they got married and the honeymoon was just an absolute disaster. And they were utterly incompatible. But they didn't know that until they'd gone through this incredibly costly and lengthy process of organising a wedding and getting married in a Kingdom Hall, only for them to come back and be utterly miserable until one had an affair with somebody else in the congregation, and then they were allowed to go their separate ways. But the expectation that is put is just not natural.
And your body wants to, well, all life wants to eat and breathe and sleep and reproduce. It's fundamental of life. And I'm not saying that we're like little animals that we go around shagging anything, but it's a basic human need, and it's so highly controlled, right down to your thinking, that you're not allowed to think about things. And it's the guilt that's overlaid on it that I think is damaging. And this obviously is not unique to witnesses, it's unique to all fundamental religions and high control groups. I mean, sex is always the first thing that any group tries to control, isn't it, when they want to control people? So I'm not saying it's unique to witnesses, but it certainly I think it's more damaging than people think. It's got this moral gloss around it, right? It's moral. You shouldn't be sleeping around, and you're safe from diseases, and you're safe from this and that and the other. And I do accept that. But watching my own children grow up, I do think it is healthy that they have sexual partners before they commit to a lifelong partner. And not because I think you might be sexually incompatible, but I just think you're trying out relationships, you're trying out how to get together, how to break up, how to be intimate, how to withdraw. You're learning a lot of stuff that you shouldn't be learning in your first and permanent forever relationship.
In normal circumstances, you don't buy the first house that you view, do you?
No.
You go around and you look at different ones, and you find out what you like and what you don't like. And I think that's absolutely right, Louise. Someone who's, in the teenage years needs to go out and experiment and, put themselves out there. And then when they're older and more mature and realize what they want from life, then maybe it's time for them to take it further. But that's totally out of the picture for witnesses, isn't it? It's just, like you say, so controlled.
And the dating pool is very small. As you say, you're only allowed to partner with witnesses. So realistically, if you're in a big congregation, there might be 20 young ones your age. Half are the same sex, so that's 10. 2 are nerds, so that's 8. 1 is too short, so that's 7. 1 is, do you know what I mean? You kind of not, there's probably realistically 2 or 3 available people. In fact, witnesses could really move to an arranged marriage situation. Because
I'm surprised they haven't. And it's funny you should say that, because you're like, one of them's a nerd, and this and that, and then maybe only one of them is an eldest child.
or
a
suitable,
pioneer.
or you
suitable,
matched, or you matched for intellect and emotional intelligence and looks and all the things that you look for. Everybody knows it from probably when you're about 3. Who are you going to
marry?
Yeah.
I heard nothing when I was a kid, but you're going to end up marrying Adam, because we grew up together in the same congregation. We were a year apart, and it was just like, yeah, all right. And I didn't think anything of it, because you just can't imagine a life for yourself at that age when you're young and growing up and having all these feelings, because you're not allowed to experience them. You're not allowed to think about it. No. You're not allowed to think about an education. People say, did you miss having Christmas and birthdays growing up? And I was like, I kind of did, but I knew I wasn't allowed it. So I wasn't allowed to miss it. I wasn't allowed to want to go to university. I wasn't allowed to think about it.
Carrying on that idea of there being a really small dating pool within JWs, one of the things that I noticed, and looking back, I've sort of realised it was quite a big thing, was there are more single women in the JW organisation than there are single men.
Right.
And
whenever there was a visiting speaker who came and he was a single brother, I'm surprised he got out alive.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say, that because the dating pool is quite small, that kind of thing that Steph just described happened. And it seems to me that there was a lot of unhappy women in the congregations, because they were perfectly good people. They could have gone out and found someone who matched them, who suited them, but they were told that they were only allowed to pick from X, Y, and Z, and they didn't want X, Y, and Z. So they lived this kind of frustrating life of not being able to find someone compatible. And I think there was a lot of that, and there still is within the congregations.
Can I assume that the only reason you and Steph and Adam, you didn't get married is because you bat for the other team, Steph?
Yeah, that is the only reason.
I don't know what happened. I thought something was wrong with me.
So I just want to talk about this really awful juxtaposition that we were kept very sexually innocent, because we weren't allowed to, kiss or touch or at all, or think about it or touch ourselves or anything. But at the same time, in the meetings, we were exposed to quite graphic sexual content and discussion. So I remember as a child us talking about anal sex and oral sex in the Tuesday book study group, and in the context of saying it wasn't allowed, but it being not described in graphic detail, but it being described enough, more than it should have been, with small children there. And sexual content, adult content, is never differentiated for children, because obviously we don't have Sunday schools, or we don't have, you know, separate meetings for children. So I went to a teacher training thing for primary schools a while ago, and it was about teaching relationship and sex education. And it was about how do you broach topics with a class when some children have been over sexualized inappropriately by their family life, and other children are very innocent. And she suggested, like, you know, you talk in very general terms, and then you say, if you've got any specific questions, put them in this box and I'll answer them privately so that you can address. And I said, it just occurred to me, I said, you might have Jehovah's Witness children in your classes that can talk about anal sex and oral sex, haven't got a clue what it is, and have never kissed anyone or held anybody's hand and aren't allowed to date, that they're simultaneously over sexualized and forcefully under sexualized.
Yeah. It is. You're absolutely right. If you think back to when we got the Young People Ask book in the 80s, I would say I would have started reading or been aware of the book. I think my sister got it, and remember she got a copy of it. And then about 91, 92, I'm 8 years old, and I'm picking up this book, and it's saying, you know, how can I make real friends, and how do I resist the urge to smoke, and and then all of a sudden you've got masturbation as the next chapter, and you've no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So you like you say, you're being exposed to two completely different theories. One, it says, here is this book for children that contains things about sex, but don't think about sex and don't have anything to do with sex. But here is all this information about it.
Yeah, here's a graphic explanation of the things that you're not allowed to think about, talk about.
If you think about the Bible, you are not allowed to have normal sexual or sexualized interactions as a teenager, as you're growing up with people your own age. But let's read this account in Genesis where Lot has sex with two of his daughters so that they can carry on the line. Let's talk about how this prostitute was ripped to pieces.
Let's look at this picture of somebody driving what was it, a tent peg through somebody's genitals.
Head. Oh, was it? I thought it was through the head. Was it?
Right. So there's a Bible account where somebody drives.
A spear, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Through a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that one. Did your parents study these kind of books with you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Mine, no.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
That's because, Steph, lesbians don't have sex according to Queen Victoria.
No.
So they probably figured you were safe.
Probably, no. But it's so funny that you should say that, though, because I've just had this thought about how it was framed as well. It's so dysfunctional, but so misogynistic at the same time.
Yeah.
So as well as there are so many different angles to this. I think we could talk about this all night. There are so many different angles to this because you're not allowed to think about sex. You are only allowed sex within marriage. However, the husband is in charge of you as well. And so the thing about women's chastity, the thing about virginity being prized and virgins being prized, especially female virgins, although the same did apply for men in the organisation, I do think that point should be made. It wasn't as though men were given a free pass to shag whoever they wanted and women weren't. I do want to make that distinction. And I also want to make sure that we make the distinction for those who were sexually exploited or abused within the congregation as part of the ongoing endemic issue with sexual abuse within the congregation,
of which there are many,
but which was not my personal experience, so I can't speak to that.
I can remember when I was young, probably before I was 10 years of age, my dad. So, just for anyone who doesn't know, JW parents are meant to sit down with their child or children once a week and study a book with them, like the one Steph mentioned. Was it Young People Ask, the one that you mentioned,
Yeah,
Steph?
see, we always studied as our family study. We would just study the material for the book study that week. So it's usually the Revelation book or the Greatest Man book.
Yeah.
I never had a personal study with either of my parents.
So I did for a while. It wasn't regular, but I did for
Mm.
a while with my dad. And I can remember before I was 10 years old studying, I think it was called the Youth Book. It was a red one.
Yeah,
Do you remember that, Louise?
I do. And I remember the pink one before it, but I am much older than you.
Well, the Youth Book was it was quite explicit in what it discussed. And I can remember we'd done about 4 chapters. And then it came up to a chapter. I think it was on sex and dating or something. And I was thinking, oh no, this is going to be really embarrassing next Monday evening when me and my dad sit down and we have to go through it. And he said that week, he said, oh, I'm going to be busy next Monday evening. So I thought, oh, maybe he's going to do it the week after. And he was busy the following Monday evening as well. And we never did it. We never covered it. And I think he was as embarrassed as I was, because he was kind of being forced as a JW elder to study this material with his 9-year-old, and we never did it. We never got back to the study after
Wow.
that. So I think
I've just put,
it scarred him as much as it scarred
yeah,
me.
I've just pulled the book up on the website, Your Youth Getting the Best Out of It. So, chapter 3 is growing into manhood. Oh dear, hair and erections. Chapter 4
Oh,
is moving into
wow.
womanhood. That'll be periods and boobs, won't it? Chapter 5 is masturbation and homosexuality.
That's
Oh,
the one.
there's a nice
Chapter 5.
compilation, isn't there?
And
Why
Yeah.
hasn't?
that's another thing that's absolutely horrific, isn't it? Putting
Yeah,
the two of them together.
yeah,
Like if
absolutely
if
disgusting.
wanking made you gay, everybody in the world would be
There'd be
gay.
no
It's just
children born.
exact.
And I guess that's another thing. I know we've discussed it in a previous podcast, but any normal adult has choices when it comes to their sexuality, but that is one choice that is taken from you straight away. You are not allowed to be gay.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that is, if you went to the elders in your congregation and said, I'm actually gay, I just thought I'd let you know, you'd probably be thrown out of the congregation. You'd be
Oh
disfellowshipped.
you wouldn't. You'd what would I'll tell you what'll happen, Adam. You'll get two elders coming round to your house, wanting you to give them an account of every single sexual thought you've ever had, of any porn that you might have watched, of any experience that you've had with yourself or with anybody else. And then at the end of it, you'll get told, don't worry, we love you. It's not your fault. You can just never act on it. And maybe in the new system, you'll meet a nice brother. Or maybe in this
Right.
system, you'll meet a nice brother and you just need convincing.
And you'd be forced to marry him.
Yeah, well, pretty much. There's nobody else. Maybe you'll be straight in. This is the thing after Armageddon. And I'm that's fascinated by this. Is it like when there's all these rotting bodies by the sides of the road, 7 or 8 billion bodies
Yeah,
that I'm in the middle of burying, that one day I'm just going to go,
oh,
he's really fit, that guy
just
over there
I fancy a bit.
who's digging that
Yeah,
grave over there.
it's funny. I
Who'd have
just
thought?
fancy a bit of cock now.
Grave diggers are quite muscular, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, yeah, really buff. But you have this idea, don't you, that your sexuality is dictated to you from the very beginning, and when you have that and it doesn't become your own, it leaves the door open for so many issues in the future. And when I say that we're sexually dysfunctional, I mean, I don't mean that I am, asexual or have any
No,
problem with sex or anything like that, but the number of destructive relationships that I've been in,
actually the same. Yeah.
which has, I mean, some of it has roots in, trauma and growing up in a cult in general. But I think when you're forced to deny your sexuality until or long after puberty, when that should be the time you get to express it. That should get the time when you get to say, I think this might be, I think I might be gay in my case. When you don't get to do that, and then when you do finally come out of it, you are ripe for being taken advantage of by people.
You're really vulnerable.
You're so vulnerable, and it's sexual. It's so difficult, isn't it? And I know I'm going to ramble on now, but it's difficult because sex is more than just a physical act. It's there is so much involved in it that is emotional. Whether you're casually having sex or whether you're doing it as part of a relationship, you can't switch off yourself and your feelings. And if you can switch off yourself and your feelings, then that's another problem altogether. Yeah. And so it affects, and for a lot of the time destroys what should be a natural part of growing up. I mean, you'll know this, Louise, because when you teach PSHE or PD in school, and the way they teach PD now, of it being, you have sex when you're ready, and then we talk about how
lots of consent,
absolutely, so much consent, and this thing about you are who you are, and you are important, and you matter, and your body is your own, and we weren't taught any of that.
Yeah, no, we weren't. And actually, the way they teach PD in schools in England it's called relationship and sex education, because the emphasis is on building healthy consensual relationships. And it's just, we were given a warped view of how worldly people were. I think we were taught that worldly people were just shagging willy-nilly and getting diseases and the faces rotting off from syphilis because they were all so promiscuous, and that is just not the case. Worldly people marry just as much as witnesses marry. Witnesses have affairs just as much as worldly people have affairs, probably more because of the suppression. And when you leave that really highly controlled situation, often you are super vulnerable, and you do go off and do more ridiculous things than you would have done had you just been allowed to grow up normally.
Because you're not taught to have self-confidence. You're not taught to have feelings of self-worth. You are told you need, especially by a man, you are told that you need to do X, Y, and Z. So you go, okay. And then when a person comes along who is exploitative and who is abusive, and they say you need to do X, Y, and Z, you go okay. Yeah.
So vulnerable. And then they use that. They say, oh, well, look, these people left the witnesses, and look at these terrible decisions they've made. And I think, because you sent them out into the world with zero tools for life.
Zero tools and zero concepts of self-worth.
I always found what was quite interesting was the governing body and the writing committee and all of the other departments at the head office of JWs. They're all men. And the majority of them are, should we say, older men, kind of 65 plus. And those were the ones that were writing those books that formed our views on this. And it kind of strikes me as strange that it was definitely not a balanced view. It was very, very controlled and very kind of white older male.
Going back to that, your youth, getting the best out of it. So further on, after alcohol and drugs and discipline comes, does sexual morality make sense? Dating and courtship, and can you succeed in marriage? And I suppose, objectively, you kind of want to teach a morality, but I think it's the over control, the rigidness. So I remember before an assembly once, we were advised from the platform that the sisters had to, when they put their assembly outfit on, they had to bend over and have their husband stand behind them and check that you couldn't see.
I wondered where you were going then.
They had to bend over and check that they couldn't see the pants, so that, and I just
who would do that for the single sisters?
I don't know.
You've just got that one closeted lesbian go, I volunteer as tribute. I'll do it.
I'm doing a service. I'll drive round your house.
Yeah, I'm a zealous pioneer sister. Bend over.
There was always one sister at any assembly I went to, and she'd always have a skirt just slightly above the knee, and
Yeah.
you could always tell the elders would be eyeing her up and thinking, oh, she's in trouble. She's in trouble. That's
Like
naughty.
half an inch, like just sat across your kneecap. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh.
And all of the younger married brothers and single brothers were thinking, whoa, for
She's
different reasons.
racy.
So I have a question for you two then. What was it like for you being married to someone? Do you feel as though with your marriages that you got married so that you could have sex, or did you feel as though that you genuinely did love that person and think that they were absolutely your entire world?
I think, as Louise said before, that was part of it. I know for me, because I was young as well, I was only 21 when I got married. We were heavily in it. We were regular pioneers. And the kind of view on the horizon for both of us was that, we might end up in Bethel, or we might get asked to be missionaries or something like that. So that was it was almost like the career ladder. That was what was in front of us. And because everyone else that you knew that was doing that kind of thing was married, it was almost like, right, we've got to scramble around and find a partner now. And I think we were both at that stage. So that was how it was for me.
I'd had a heartbreak situation. I'd gone out with somebody quite older than me when I was 17, and I thought we were going to get married, and then he broke it off. Now, looking back, we were wildly incompatible, so I'm really glad he did. But at the time I was heartbroken, and I left home and moved down to Southampton. So I was, like, I don't know how far it is, 250 miles.
Yeah, it's
200 miles away
far.
from home. And then I got a bed sit. So I was living on my own in a bed sit, which the elders were absolutely mortified at. They wrote back to my elders in my congregation and asked if I was a prostitute. I found out afterwards. So I was kind of on a massive rebound. And my Jehovah's Witness husband, I think we got on, like, he was intelligent. So he was one of the few intelligent JWs I'd ever met. So that was quite attractive, and he was good looking. I couldn't, hand on heart, say he was like the one that out. I think it was more that he was suitable. He was good looking. He was intelligent. It filled a massive gap in my soul because I was desperately lonely and needy for love. And yeah, I had a real issue with sex. It terrified me. Just terrified. Yeah, I just hated it. I just hated it, and I feel really sorry for him because it was awkward for him to have a wife like that. And then eventually the marriage was like not going anywhere. I was obviously out of love, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I am going to have to live for eternity with this person.
Yeah.
And I've only ever had sex with one person, my husband, and we're going to live forever in paradise on earth. And it terrified me.
I'd be really interested to know how many Jehovah's Witnesses who aren't able or strong enough or circumstances to leave such a desperately unhappy situation.
Yeah, I
and
guess
how
when
many
you look back,
how many do you think are really happy as couples?
yeah, what percentage? I guess when you look back at the congregations that we were in, how many of those couples were actually happy?
Yeah. I really don't know. Not many, I wouldn't have thought. I can only think of one or two.
It was always a push to show that you were happy.
Yeah.
So to put on this facade of, yeah, we're right in the middle of the congregation, we're doing all the right things, we're at the meetings, and then that would make you happy somehow.
We're the happiest people on earth.
Exactly, yeah. And that was the mantra that you had to kind of live by. But I think behind closed doors there was a lot of unhappiness.
I think if you look at the general population, I might have a bleak view because of my own personal experiences of picking up the wrong people. I'm not entirely sure. There are lots of people that are happily married anyway. And then when you compound that with a cult that doesn't allow you to get divorced, even if there's domestic violence, one way or another. I'm not suggesting that's a man towards a woman, although it more often is. But I know there was a case of domestic violence of the sister towards her husband in a congregation I knew. But you're just not allowed to leave. You're told, well, you can win them round without a word, and if you put up with it. So there's a complications on top of ordinary difficulties. And I think when I got married, I was only just gone 20. I wasn't my fully formed self.
No.
And neither was he. And we grew in different directions.
Well, your brain's not fully developed, has it? You're still sort of sharpening those last few bits of your personality and your body. You don't know what you want.
No.
It's like baptism. It's such a huge thing to enter into at such a young age.
I don't think my brain's fully developed yet. But on a serious note, when you think about it, if you've only been out of the organisation for 10 years, you're basically a 10-year-old, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because you've been in this high control cult all of your life, and you've not done the normal things that a normal child, teenager, young adult does. So I view it as, I've only just had my, 8th birthday, because that is how it feels. I don't know if you guys had read the book Crisis of Conscience.
Yes.
I haven't read it. No.
It's really good. It's quite heavy going, because
that's
does
what's
go.
Put me off, to be honest. I'm sure it's fabulous, but I'm exhausted. Exhausted to think about it.
You know the backstory, don't you?
Yes, of course,
he was a member of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, and then.
Oh, that was one of the things that made me not really be bothered to read it, was that he remained sort of quite devoutly Christian.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that's always put me off. But anyway, carry on.
So he, in the 70s, he started to realise that there was some major flaws with this religion. And, he wrote this book later on in life when he left the Witnesses, and there's a chapter in it where he describes what used to happen at the head office in New York, and he said that they used to receive hundreds and hundreds of letters from married couples who were basically saying, look, in our sex lives we do X, Y, and Z. Is that allowed according to the Bible? Because we don't know, so we want you to tell us, and whatever you tell us, that's what we'll do. And it said it caused a problem for the governing body, because they were getting so many of these questions from JWs, is that they were stuck in a position where they could put down rules, but then obviously when you start putting rules down, there's always exceptions, and then there's other people who say, well, that's not right, because it's my choice, it's my marriage kind of thing, it's personal. And they ended up putting down definite rules on what a husband and wife can do in their sex life.
In their own bedroom.
I think that was, I think it was that the 70s, I think.
I think it was. There was an ultra-conservative sort of feel towards sex, even for Jehovah's Witnesses, weren't there, in that sort of 70s to 90s period?
Yeah.
But that's another question, and feel free to not answer this at all. How well would you say that either yourselves or other witness couples really paid attention to that? Like, is it strictly missionary between witness couples, or is it a case of, what happens in our bedroom is not the governing body's concern?
I think there's always a guilt complex that is kind of drummed into you as a Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
And the impression I got from other people is that they largely stuck to the rules.
Right.
And I think the rules were kind of loosened a little bit in the 90s. I think there was a Watchtower that came out basically saying, look, it's a conscience thing. You do what you do in your marriage, but don't ask, don't tell kind of thing.
Yeah, I got that impression that people largely stuck to the rules. If they didn't, it'd never be discussed.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I'm sure there are cases, aren't there, where there has been discussions of what would be classed as porneia within a marriage that's led to divorce between Jehovah's Witnesses. So porneia would be classed as anything that the governing body decided was unclean or sexually immoral to the point where it was actually grounds for divorce. So you could say have sex and then both of you consent to maybe anal sex, and then the next day or the day after one of you goes to the elders and confesses, and you're actually, if one of the party feels guilty or for whatever reason, that is grounds for a scriptural divorce, even if the sex was consensual. Whereas if you have a domestic violence situation and one of you's beaten 7 shades of shit out of the other one, that was never grounds for divorce. So it's weird, isn't it, that consensual sexual practices.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
And I think Adam's right about that guilt and shame that's attached to, even when you're following the rules, even when you've not had sex until you get married. And you're doing, you've got a very clean moral sheet. The guilt and shame associated with it, because up to the point where you're married, obviously nothing's permitted. I just really struggled with shame. For instance, I couldn't have sex on a Friday night because there was field service on Saturday morning. Same on a Saturday night because there was a meeting on Sunday morning. Don't ask me why. Somehow in my mind it was like I couldn't.
Shameful.
It seemed so wildly different, like carnal one night and then spiritual the next morning. And it blighted.
But that makes sense though, doesn't it? Because there is so much shame around sex as a Jehovah's Witness. Even within a marriage, there are so many rules. And this is why I'm sort of fascinated by your stories, like both of you. Because despite the fact that being gay as a witness isn't easy, any sex that I've had has only ever been after I left the witnesses. So even though a part of me did think, because I still believed I was going to be destroyed as a lesbian until, embarrassingly recently, there was always that case of the next day or a week later or a month later, shit, what if Armageddon does come tomorrow and I'm destroyed? But there was never that feeling of I cannot have any sex at all, or I shouldn't sort of enjoy this because of it. And I can't imagine the guilt of being a straight Jehovah's Witness in this kind of manufactured heterosexual marriage and thinking, I want to do that, but am I allowed? Can I do that? I don't know. Can I do that to that person? Are they allowed to do that to me?
And the knowledge that even in the privacy of your own bedroom between you and your married consenting partner, there's sort of, you're kind of your own policeman. So it feels like Jehovah's in the bedroom with you. It feels like, if you did something that you felt shame about, Jehovah would know about it. So he's basically sat watching you. That's what it felt like for me in my head. And I remember after, I don't know, maybe 5 years of marriage, it really got me down my own attitude towards sex, my own blighted attitude. And I went for counselling. And I said, I struggled with sex and I didn't enjoy it and it was painful. But I didn't dare tell her I was a witness. And by the second or third session, I spent the whole hour just sobbing, not speaking. And then I didn't go back because it consciously dawned on me that if I said I'm a Jehovah's Witness, that would somehow be mixed up with part of the problem or part of the solution, and I didn't.
But that's another problem, isn't it? Because you're told time and time again that you don't bring reproach upon Jehovah.
And Jehovah's name.
So you probably thought that even discussing that.
I did.
Oh, that's terrible.
I did. It was awful. I remember there was a really lovely sister who was about my age. There were a few young married couples. I remember sitting on a bench with her in Gloucester, in the middle of Gloucester, and saying to her, I hate sex. I can't do it. And I'm so and like just pouring my heart out to her.
What was her response?
Well, she quite enjoyed sex with her husband. So she was like,
good for her.
Yeah, no, I thought that.
Yeah, bully for you.
And she wasn't like crushing, and she was really empathetic. She was a really lovely, kind friend. But I did come away thinking, it's me. I'm just like, I'm broken. There's something broken about me.
But that's the theme anyway, isn't it? That's the thing. If your marriage is not happy, you need to fix it 'cause it's your problem. If
Yeah.
you don't enjoy sex, that's your problem because
Yeah.
Jehovah is perfect. So it's not his fault. It's not the organization's fault.
Yeah. It's your fault for
It's your
not
fault.
getting it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did either of you know, I mean, most of the witness couples we know got married young. Did either of you know any couples that got married much later on in life?
Yes, if they were widowed, not if they were. They'd already been married before, I think.
Yeah,
Right,
no.
okay.
Everybody I knew got married pretty young.
Yeah, same.
About
Yeah,
19,
same for
20,
me.
21. Yeah.
There was the odd one here and there, but most of them were like 20 or even younger, you know. There was one couple I can remember who were older. I think they were both in their late 50s. He was quite a well-known elder, known as quite a serious elder. And she was, she'd been a regular pioneer since she'd left school, and they got married. They must have been late 50s or even early 60s, and it was their first marriage. So it was obviously that, you know, it was the first time they'd been in a relationship. And one of the other brothers said to me, he said, "What do you think they did on their wedding night?" And I just instinctively said, "I bet they studied their watchtower together when they went home that night." They probably did.
I bet they didn't.
So the other aspect of this discussion, I suppose, is what happens when somebody does do something wrong, either fornication or adultery. We're probably the only people that know the crucial distinction between those pejorative words, which obviously is a body of elders and a reproof. So there was a situation in my congregation where I had actually, when I left school, I went back and tried to witness to all my school friends. And one of them started, yeah, I know, how embarrassing. I'm mortified when I think about it. One of my school friends started having a Bible study with me. I really liked her. She was lovely, and she started coming to meetings. And then suddenly she stopped. She cancelled her Bible study, and I didn't see her for quite a while. And I remember being on the bus with my mum one day, and I said, "Oh, I know why." I'm going to use all different names in this anecdote, so bear with. I said, "Oh, I know why Sandra stopped having a Bible study." And my mum goes, "Oh, yeah, because she had sex with Michael." And I went, "Wait, what?" So one of the my peers in the congregation, they'd obviously hit it off really well and had sex. He got disfellowshipped because he was obviously a baptized witness. And the elders asked her mum if they could go around and give her a reproof. My school friend. And the mum let them. So, she'd stopped her study. She'd never got baptised. She'd not even got as far as going out on field service or anything. She just was coming to Sunday meetings. Then she stopped. And all of this I found out afterwards. Isn't that horrific?
Yeah.
Crikey.
I think she was 16 or 17.
Imagine being chastised by the leaders of a religion you're not even part of.
I know.
It's terrible.
And her mum was a single parent, so she lived with her mum and another sibling. So there was no man of the house. So then imagine having 3 old guys coming round and ticking you off for doing what other normal people in your social circle are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not 3 old guys who were qualified in any way. They would be a bus driver,
a window cleaner,
an office cleaner, and
and a road sweeper.
A road sweeper, yeah.
Oh, how mortifying.
I think this is the thing, and maybe we need to clarify what does happen if you are caught or if you do have sex outside. If you have sex outside of marriage, if you have the kind of sex that is not allowed within the marriage.
I knew of one girl, she was 18, 19, and she decided she was going to supplement her income by advertising services on a website, which is totally fine. If someone wants to do that, it's perfectly fine, and that's their choice. And the elders found out after about 6 months and immediately disfellowshipped her, completely ruined her life. Yeah.
She didn't even get a judicial.
Yeah, I think she had a judicial and it was done and dusted. It was, yeah, you've been doing this for 6 months.
Yeah.
You're obviously not sorry about it. And that's that. But I mean, it's entirely her choice what she does. If she wants to do that, then, who is anyone else to interfere? But obviously, because she was a witness, then the elders policed her sex life.
And it's stupid, isn't it? Because the whole idea is that the disfellowshipping arrangement is there because she's bringing reproach upon Jehovah's name. I guarantee it never came up with anything.
Yeah,
at any
exactly,
time that she was, offering her services. But yeah, you've got you run the risk essentially of, if you do anything outside of marriage or outside of what the society deems as acceptable sexually, and that includes being gay, then you are dismissed from the congregation if you act on it. So the reason why people are so uptight about it in the witnesses is because if you do break these rules, you will potentially lose your entire family and your entire social circle, or be the threat of being destroyed at Armageddon.
It is actually terrifying. I always used to feel sorry for, in 2 congregations I was in, there was a really good looking young brother in both of them who was obviously gay, but not acting on it. And my heart broke for those lads, because I just thought they would have, like that they were just, camp and delicate and gentle and sensitive. And I thought, oh my God, what a brutalizing situation to be in, because they were both born in. So it's not, like you just grow up and you're who you are, and who you are is not permitted.
That's the thing. It's not even what you do, it's who you are. There's that scripture that always bothered me in 1 Corinthians, when he's saying men who lie with men, and so men who practice homosexuality, greedy people, drunks, thieves, and extortioners will not inherit the kingdom. As though it's you might be the most upstanding citizen in the world, but if you're gay, then you just pick that up unconsciously and overtly, that you are not allowed.
Did you know that you were gay while you were still a witness?
Oh God, yeah, I've known since I was 4.
Oh right,
and people think that's strange, and they're like, oh, you can't know when you're 4, but you can.
Right.
You look at people and fancy them when you even before puberty.
You do, absolutely. I remember fancying people when I was 8, 9.
Yeah. And when I say I knew that I knew when I was 4, it's because there was it's an old ABBA LP that I used to have, that my mum used to have, and I remember opening the ABBA LP, and on the cover art it had a picture of Anna Fried out of ABBA, and I was completely obsessed with it, and I would just look at that picture, and I wanted to grow up and I wanted to marry her.
Oh.
And
did you?
No, she never returned my calls, and it's very sad. I've moved on now. I moved on to Sarah Lancashire and Claire Balding. But I honestly don't, even if it's not in a sexual way, because people say, well, you're not sexual at 4. I'm not saying it was sexual. I just knew I was never going to marry a man. I just knew that for me, when I grew up and get married, and girls have that idea of the wedding from such a young age, I didn't want to marry a man. And that's how I say I knew when I was 4. So I can't remember.
I was 5, and it absolutely broke my heart when I heard that.
So really sorry. Yeah, I had to have a chat with Adam when I was 4, and just say, I'm really sorry. I'm into girls.
Yeah.
Guilted at 5.
I heard that you fancied my sister anyway. For a while.
Yeah, maybe when I was about
slim
7.
pickings, wasn't it? Slim pickings.
Yeah.
That must have been hard though, Steph, growing up, going through puberty and being a teenager, with all the attendant difficulties that teenage life brings anyway, but then being in a religion where you're fundamentally not allowed to exist.
No, absolutely. And I remember actually, it was when I think I knew when I was 4, but I just put it away. And then I knew for sure when I went to college. I went to do A levels because my old school didn't have any internet in their school. It was 2000 when I left school and I went to do A levels. So the internet was only just taking off, and dial-up was there, but dial-up was very, it wasn't reliable, and nobody really used the internet for kind of casual browsing back then. It was very much a functional thing. So when I went to college, and all these computers had like full broadband internet access, and all of a sudden it was like I could start to Google things, nothing like porn or anything like that, but just sort of, you found out in the paper that Ellen DeGeneres had come out as gay, so I might read something about Ellen, or I was obsessed with this idea of like Ellen and Anne Heche as this like celebrity lesbian couple, and but it was such a lonely, isolated thing, because now I could be so out and open, and I'm so envious and yet so proud of these like gay kids at school where I teach, because they're so lucky in a lot of ways, that they can just be themselves. And it doesn't, not all the time. There is still a lot of young people who struggle with it. But the idea that you cannot look at any of this, you shouldn't be doing any of this, you can't talk about it to anyone.
No.
You can't tell your friends because you're worried that they're going to rat you out, and then you can't tell anybody in your family because then the elders will get told, because I was already baptized by them.
Yeah, it's like living in North Korea, isn't it? You can't tell anyone you want to escape, not even your partner, because you just don't know who you can trust.
I think it's safe to say that being brought up as a Jehovah's Witness and going through puberty and sexuality is irreversibly damaging. It is damaging. However, I do not accept it as an excuse that some people might use to behave in a certain way after.
Yeah. I think, summing up the whole situation, one of the saddest things I found after I left was the way we demonized worldly people, and I'd imagined that they were all really wicked and promiscuous and filthy and degenerate. And there are a few people like that, but then there are a few people like that within the congregation, because there's a lot of child abusers. But in general, like when I left, I used to think, well, why would anybody bother getting married? If you don't have to, why would you? But people do, and people do normal life things.
Yeah.
And people in general want to be good, nice people. And I just found that sad that it took me such a long time to undemonize worldly people and realize that they too also want to get married and have families and be settled. Like, witnesses didn't have the monopoly on morality. Quite the opposite. In fact, I think I would say.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, because it took me a while, maybe a good couple of years, to realise that actually people are quite normal, and it was us that were kind of cloistered away in this high control cults that were absolutely bonkers, mad, bizarre. We were the odd ones, definitely.
Yeah, and I feel for especially sisters in the congregation, because of course women aren't allowed to terminate pregnancies.
Yeah.
So the control, that this misogynistic idea of control over a woman's body extends once she's even pregnant, and then if she's pregnant and let's say whether she wants the baby or not, the baby arrives, if she then during childbirth suffers catastrophic blood loss, she could die because of a blood transfusion. And I think all the way through a woman's life, and I know it's sexually repressive for men as well, and I'm not taking anything of that away, but I think women suffer under that yoke of misogyny on top of sexual repression as well. Although I would argue, of course, that men suffer from misogyny. Men suffer from the results of sexual, female oppression as well in the long term.
There was a man who came to the protest in 2018 whose wife had died in childbirth because she took blood, and he was a single father who'd brought that boy up, and he brought a beautiful hand-drawn portrait along of his wife. It just heartbreaking. So you're right, she suffered because she died. The child suffered because he didn't have a mum, and dad suffered because he brought that child up. on his own. And, that was probably something that could have been really easily remedied.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
Do you know what? I used to think that despite having grown up with no Christmas and no birthdays, I used to think in some ways I was protected as a child growing up as a witness because I didn't get to, I didn't get to experience the dangerous nights of passing out drunk in a field
Yeah.
with your mates. I didn't do drugs. I didn't worry about teenage pregnancy because I wasn't having sex at that age, or with men for that point. But and do you remember when you said, Louise, that you disagree? Because I've always said I don't mind that I was raised as a witness because in some ways because it means that I can talk to people really easily, and I can. And I remember you saying but that's a skill that you could have developed in other ways. You didn't have to be in a cult to have that skill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but my point is that ultimately I think that in some ways I feel as though maybe I was protected from adverse sexual experiences, but my point is that they will always catch up to you. That it doesn't benefit a child to be sexually repressed for religious reasons, because you end up living out that, like you said, Adam, that kind of second puberty when you leave the witnesses.
Yeah.
And you live that out with more disastrous consequences because you have adult responsibilities at the same time. You're supposed to have that sexual kind of awakening when you're young and you don't have any other responsibilities. So it catches up with you.
I look at my own children who have absolute freedom to do whatever they want, and oddly they don't do anything. They're not amoral, they're not promiscuous, they're not cruel to people or using people for to get their own supply. They're nice, kind individuals who've had the freedom to practice little relationships, and then in my daughter's case, because she's older, have like a really wonderful long-term relationship. So she's 28 now, she's just got engaged, but that this is going to be like the right relationship, and I'm so proud of her for that, that she had those opportunities that I didn't have. I just married the first person that showed the slightest bit of interest in me, and with not great results really.
And yet there are incredibly sexually dysfunctional people within the organisation who are more dangerous than people who are outside of it in some cases.
Adam, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's just really that a lot of ex-witnesses that are listening to this podcast, will probably associate themselves with a lot of the comments we've made. If there are any current witnesses listening to it, my advice would be just look at your life and look at what the organisation has taken control of in your life that really any other normal person has got control of themselves. And in this case, it's your sex life and relationships. You've basically given that control over to a bunch of old men in New York, and that's not normal. It really isn't.
But that it can get better. That's the good thing. It can get better, and the first step I would say is going on that journey of emotional growth that you were not allowed to do. I think that's first and foremost. And then once you realise that and get into that thing about your own self-worth, other things like relationships and good sex will follow and fall into place, I think.
And I have a final thought. I've been single now since my last disastrous relationship. I've had 3 pretty disastrous relationships on the spin, and now I'm on my own. And the joy that I feel being single is, I could never, if you told me before, I would never have believed it, because I was always so desperate to be loved, and now I've reached a place of, I've done a lot of work and a lot of growth, and it's a wonderful place to be. By the same token, I've met Adam's partner, and I think she's absolutely a wonderful person.
I met her last weekend.
So Adam's gone a different path and found a really lovely relationship. So there's all sorts of different outcomes, but it's nice to have the choice and not be, as Adam said, guided by a group of old men.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for oversharing. It's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it, and welcome to season 2, and here's to a great season of podcasts coming up.
Thank you. Really enjoyed being back.
Yeah, we'll say goodbye.
See you next time.
Bye for now.